Action!
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of All Talk. I'm Mike All, your host. Today we have another hilarious Chicago comedian. Although I hate calling him like a Chicago comedian or comedian Chicago in general because, like, yes, he lives here, but it's not just here that he performs. He travels all over the place and does it. He's got 3 albums out now, I believe. The last one was called Vinsectomy, that just was released about a month ago. I think. Is that right, Vince? About a month ago?
Yeah, March 20th.
March 20th. So a little over, right when everybody needs something to watch. So this is my guest tonight. Very funny guy and a good friend. Please let's say hi to Vince Carone. What's going on, Vince?
What's going on? I appreciate you having me on here. I'm gonna correct one thing just because of my fragile ego. It is my 5th album.
5th album. Wow.
And I'll show you behind me on the wall here. First one, second one, third one, fourth one, and I don't have the 5th one printed yet because I released it right in the middle of quarantine and I wasn't about to buy hundreds of copies of it to sit on them. So I like myself, but not that much. So
not that much. So your first one was your first album. Now Will You Wear a Condom? Was that your first one?
Yeah, that was my first one. So that's this one over here, and because I'm a narcissist with an insecurity problem, so I've got my own stuff hanging up behind me. So that was my first one. Thanks for the clap. So the first one was Now Will You Wear a Condom in 2007. Thanks for the clap, 2009. No Complaints, 2014. I Plead the first, 2017, and then Vinsectomy, March of 2020.
So it's crazy to me that because you did one in 2017 and then now one that just came out again. But you actually, when did you record Vinsectomy? Was that in January?
December of 2019. Yeah.
December. Wow. So you turned that around pretty quick. One of the main things that I've always wanted to ask you, and it's great that we get to sit down and talk a little bit now, is I like watching you because you're a ranter, right? You're not the typical set up punch, right? You're just going through, and it reminds me of an old comedian, not that you're old, but an old comedian. I think his name's Carl LeBeau. He used to talk really fast. And his thing used to be, if you pay attention, you'll be rewarded. And that's how I feel watching you. Like, I want to laugh, but I got to keep paying attention because you're going.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
No, yeah, I'm gonna move quick and I'm gonna move past, and every so often I'll pause and I'll let people kind of catch up 3 or 4 jokes deep and kind of give them like a moment's breather, then I'll ramp it up again.
Yeah. So knowing that your style is that rant, right? Like, I mean, it'd be nothing. I mean, I've seen you go on a rant that is as short as 3 or 4 minutes. I've seen you go on for as long as 10 minutes, right? Like it's nonstop. How do you write for that? So, like, do you sit down and write those rants out, or how do you get to that place? Because I mean, an hour long of ranting. I mean, you're literally saying thousands upon thousands of words, more than I would in a full set, just because of your style.
Yeah, I had my last album transcribed, and I believe it was something around 12,000 words, maybe something crazy like that in the hour that I did. So I used to write when I first started ranting. I kind of switched my style from setup punch to ranting back in like 2004, 2005. I was a few years in at the time. And early on in that switch, I'd be meticulous and think through and write down every word and every joke and literally every beat. And I would memorize it the exact way I wrote it. And I'd wind up in this hit or miss place where like it would be great or it would be terrible. And what would be so frustrating is when it was terrible, I wasted so much time writing those long rants out and then memorizing them to go try them, because it wasn't like one joke that I'm going to go try a new joke. It was like I had to commit to a whole piece. And it was so frustrating when something would go bad because I would waste way too much time on the prep. And it was about, I can think I can pinpoint it. It was like April of 2006. I was at a gig in, I think, Menasha, Wisconsin, which is right outside of Appleton. And I was on stage and I was doing a bit that I had written about drinking. I think I was 24 years old or something at the time. And in the bit, I riffed a couple lines like live on stage that killed, and it killed in the bit. And I was able just to kind of see like the process, like, oh, if I just trusted my gut and I just kind of just rolled with the punches of the rant, could I break out of this pen to paper piece? And that was like the first night where I was like, I really trusted myself up there to let something go. And it wasn't like riffing with the crowd. It was in the context of the bit. And I don't remember like how quick after the transition happened, but that was like a pivotal, you know what I'm saying? Turning point for me. There's a nice paradigm shift to going, oh, trust your gut. And somewhere around that time, 2006, 2007, I started writing on stage. I started getting a germ of an idea, going up on stage with, I kind of knew the half-baked angle I wanted to take, but I would just go. And I would just trust myself to just go. I'd record it. I'd go back and listen to it. And I'd go, okay, there was something there. I can feel the energy here, or maybe it was a laugh or not, but I could feel something in that part of it. All this part of it sucked. Tomorrow when I do it, make sure I do this part again, and then rant a whole different way based off of that now. And then I would start to just kind of like, kind of like the concept map. Like, okay, I've got my nucleus, and just start branching out and see which parts stick. And then whatever part sticks, branch out from that even more. And, long answer to your short question, like the length of the rant will, obviously depends on the momentum and the laughter and the response. I've certainly killed a funny rant by tagging it or adding too much to it, even though all the parts were funny, it devalued the rest of it. But I kind of try and write it when organically an applause comes to where like the audience like knows that bit ended without me telling them. Like I don't know if I can explain that clear enough, but most of my rants would end on an applause because the audience knows I just put a bow on it. And I'll usually keep going until I feel I've gotten to that part. And there's some rants I can never figure out that definitive ending to marry it all together. And those are usually the ones that don't make the final cut. But that's how I usually try and go, okay, that just brought this whole thing together. The audience felt the full circle, and they've reciprocated in letting me know, hey, we know you ended it, great job. And they kind of tell me it's over.
Right. Now, do you come back and write that down now, or you just simply audio or video record everything, go back and watch it and then commit it to memory, or are you actually putting pen to paper?
Yeah, most of the time, probably 90% of the time, I'm just listening to the audio recording, a voice memo on my phone. I'll just, I'll hit record, throw it on the stool on the stage, but I'll listen to it fresh on the way home from the gig. I know so many comedians hate listening to themselves.
I hate hearing myself. It's important, but I hate hearing myself.
Yeah, and it's probably part of the narcissist in me, or the need for validation that causes the desire to want to do it. But I also know, for me to memorize my cadence like somebody would memorize the lyrics and rhythm to a song is so crucial for me. Because if I can listen to the first night I spit something out, and I can remember that cadence and that energy of that delivery, I can keep delivering it with that passion for a long period of time. It doesn't water it down, because I'm not only memorizing the words, I'm memorizing the energy that I first delivered it with. And so for me, it's so important to listen to those new pieces faster and a lot, because it allows me to really transfer that whole dynamic back out.
When you're listening to that, do you listen to the crowd response at all to it, or are you just listening to you?
Both. So I'm like meticulous. So sometimes I don't understand what's so funny about something I'm saying yet, and I'll sit there and hit just scramble back 10
Yeah.
seconds and listen, and I'll kind of listen to where the laughs start. So I'm like, oh, they actually started laughing 6 words before I hit the part that I thought was funny. So I've already started painting the picture to where some of them know where this is headed. So it helps me know like that delivery is so key to the ending because they're
Yeah.
laughing before I'm even at the end. So yeah, so I'll listen to both pieces.
Nice. So, one of the things I was wanting to talk to you about when we've known each other for a long time, and actually when we first met, and we were both still just kind of starting out doing this and whatnot. I'm not going to say you were a guitar act because you weren't by any means. Like you didn't take your guitar and just play the guitar the whole time, but you had the guitar with you on stage. Did you start dropping that around that 2006 timeframe as well? Like when you realized this is the kind of comic that I'm gonna be, and I don't need the guitar. Like it was I don't want to say it was a crutch, but was it something that like you were just comfortable before with a guitar on stage, so you were taking it with you? Or I mean, I know
Yeah.
everyone goes through their finding themselves process. So
Yeah, I'd say for me it was a crutch. I don't think I don't think everybody who plays guitar on stage uses for a crutch. I did. I really liked Adam Sandler, in my youth. I really liked Stephen Lynch when I was in my young 20s, who's a super funny guitar act. And I like music and I like comedy a lot. So to me, I always appreciated hearing it. And right around 2000, between 2000 and 2004, I was learning guitar. And so for me, it was a nice, easy cheat
yeah,
to get some laughs. It was fun. I had fun with it, but to me, it was easy to go, oh, I get 7 minutes on stage. Here, I've got a 4-minute song, and
sure,
that I know I'm going to get some laughs with, and I can just do a few jokes after. And so I don't know that it was ever the end game for me. I never thought about doing it forever. I don't know that I thought about not doing it forever, but I definitely was doing it because I didn't have enough jokes yet to
yeah,
fill 10 minutes, and I wasn't taking that risk. So for me, I would blend those two, and it was good in that it got me to perform longer sets faster because I could fill more. If I had 4 songs, I could fill almost 20 minutes of material in songs, and
sure,
then whatever, so I could start featuring quicker and get on the road quicker. So it helped that. But yeah, to your point, I think around 2006 or so, I'd already been shelving the guitar for the most part. And if I was doing 45 minutes on stage, I'd play maybe one song at the end. Like I had already made the reversal, but I still liked
yeah,
having it. And then around 2006 or 7, I got to a point where I was like, okay, what am I trying to be? Am I trying to be a stand-up, or am I trying to be a guitar act? And what do I want to be remembered for? And so what I do, and even now to this day, there's probably like 1 or 2 gigs a year where I'll actually bring my guitar out and I'll play the new songs I wrote throughout the year.
yeah,
And I just do it literally just for me. It's not a crutch
yeah,
anymore. It's literally selfish and for me just to do it. And I have fun doing that. But yeah, I was never a great guitar player, and I'm not a good singer. So for me, it was literally like I'm doing it because I enjoy it now, but there's no
right.
future in it for me. Like it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, when you're out on the road, you're going out for several weeks or whatnot. Do you take it with you just in case, or does it hardly make the trip anymore?
If I bring it with, it's literally just for me in the hotel room to pass time. Um,
Yeah,
like if I'm gonna play it on stage now, like once or twice a year, it'll be local, and it'll be a show where like I'm being given like the freedom to do whatever I want, and it's like a no risk show. It's not like
yeah,
like a paying audience or anything like that. You know what I mean? I'm
sure,
not robbing anybody of who would want to see what I do. I'm finding like
yeah,
a safety net type of a show and just doing it. So
yeah. Um, so one of the questions that I've kind of been asking everybody, because it's kind of fun for me, is, and I've already answered it for me, but just so, was there ever a moment that you felt like you knew you were in the comedy trenches and it didn't matter? So like the example that I've given, I'll give you the short story is, I was in South Park, Colorado. It was the worst show I'd ever been on. I hadn't been doing it that long, and I got punched in the face for 15, 20 minutes. It was god awful, and it didn't matter a bit. And I remember specifically that was the show at that point in my career that I was like, I'm doing this no matter what, no matter how much this sucks. Like, I'm at the lowest low, I'm doing it. Do you have a gig or a moment or something there that is like that rings true for?
Yeah, I'm like scrambling my brain. I've got several moments where I felt validated, like this is what I'm supposed to do, and whether it's good or a good or a bad show, I've had several moments that have validated that over time. I'm trying to think early on if there was like something that sticks out for me, like, yeah, this is where I was supposed to be. Geez, like,
They're just like, I'm working, and it's hard work, and I'm sticking with it, and it doesn't matter. And you get off, like when I got off that stage, I was like, man, that sucked. But at the same time, I was like, I loved every minute of it. That's why I'm supposed to be doing this.
yeah, I feel like, it's kind of funny. I feel like, do you remember the Comedy Cafe in Milwaukee?
Oh yeah, yep.
So when I first started, like, it was maybe May of like 2006, probably like a month after that story I just told you, where I had the shift in my head of trusting my gut on stage. I'd done a few clubs, over time, but like that was one of the first like clubs I got into. And back in 2006, they used to have 4 spots on the show. I don't know if you went there when they had this, but they had an opener. I'm sorry, they had an MC, an opener, a feature, and a headliner. Yeah. And most shows, for those that are listening, just have an MC, a feature, and a headliner, and the MC does time and does the announcements and then does some comedy. At the Comedy Cafe back in 2006, the MC didn't do any jokes. So you would go there, make the announcements, hey, get the nacho bites, we have a great show tonight, here's your first comedian. And then you would just introduce the show and keep it moving and raffle tickets and everything else.
Right.
And it was their way of testing you to see, can you control a crowd? Can you control a room? Do you know how to move a show along? Do you know how to follow instruction and not like overshadow other comedians? It was as awful as a boot camp of a weekend as it was a really smart idea by them for new people. And it paid $120 for 6 shows. So, and you don't get a hotel. So I had to commute to Milwaukee 3 nights. And you're the last guy there. So you don't get off stage for the final show Saturday till 1 something in the morning, and stuff like that. So it's, and I remember I did my first weekend there, and then I left, and I'm like, I am never doing that again. Like, I'm, if they don't book me, I won't do it again. And 3 weeks later, I get a call from the booker, and she goes, our MC for the weekend fell out. Can you come back and do the announcements for this weekend again? And I was like, yep, I'll be there. And I packed my car up and drove right back into hell. And I don't know if it was such a conscious thought at the time, but to answer your question, that was probably one of the first moments where I decided, like, I am in this. Like, I am fully committing, giving it my all. I am going somewhere right now for shit money, and I'm not even telling jokes, for fuck's sake. Like, I'm not. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to swear on this or not. I'm not even telling jokes, and ripping my headset out here, and this is what I'm doing. So that's probably one of the moments where I go, okay, I'm in this all the way.
Yeah. Wow. Speaking of MC work, did you ever house MC, or was MCing ever one of your gigs? That, because like a lot of people, like, I enjoy the MC spot because I like working with the crowd, and that's really the only spot you get to do it. I mean, other people, you can obviously do it as a feature or a headliner. If you're a headliner and that's your gig, that's what you're supposed to do, but with the MC, you get to play with the crowd a little bit, kind of mess around and stuff. And there's people who are brilliant at it, like Pat McGann is he's probably one of the best MCs I've ever seen. Kelsey Huff is right there, like 1 in 1A, like she's great. So did you ever enjoy emceeing or do it much?
I definitely paid my dues with it. As far as enjoying it, I don't know. I certainly respect the spot of it a hell of a lot more now too than I did, because when you're first coming on board, you want to get out of that. You feel like there's a difference in emceeing when you're 15 years in and emceeing when you're a year in. Like one of those is because you're new, the other one is because you're good, and like those are two different reasons to get booked as an MC. And so early on, like you can imagine with my ranting style, I don't MC is not an easy transition for me. You can't just go up to a cold audience and hey, how you doing? Birthdays, and then and just get all crazy. So I've had to learn to shift over the years when I MC to really wrap my brain around. It's not about me tonight. It's about everybody else, and I'm going to shift my style for tonight. I'm not, and some people be like, no, you be true to yourself. Like for me, at this point, I don't have an insecurity about my act. I know I can go on stage and hold my own. So if I'm going to MC, I'm going to do the job that I'm there for, and that's to make the show build and end awesome. And so I will change my delivery and my style for those types of nights a little bit. But early on, I would have hit and miss. Like I enjoyed emceeing at the Improv in Schaumburg because it was an audience that just let you get right into your act. I didn't have to do the crowd stuff. I could actually just go. And then I would MC Zanies, and the crowds would want you to mix it up more. And I would feel very torn years and years ago. So it was a tough spot for me. I didn't want to be above it. And there's so many comics can say, I don't have an act for it. And, I know I sound like I'm just giving an excuse like everyone else. So, but I enjoy the spot now. I don't pursue it, but when I get it now, I enjoy it and I embrace it.
Yeah, I think if I were to see you as if I were a booker and I brought, years ago and I brought you in and like, okay, you got to come in and do an MC set. After watching you for like 3 or 4 shows, I would probably be like, yeah, I want you back as a feature. Like, like don't come back as an MC. Not that you're not a good MC, but like you fit better as a feature or a headliner. Like that because of your style.
Even a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, I worked with Finesse Mitchell at the Improv, and it was just going to be me and him, just a 2-man show. I'd play both roles, the MC and feature. So I'd be getting 25 to 30 minutes a night, a show. And so on Thursday night, I went up and I did both spots, and it was a weird transition and it was clunky and awkward. It was fine, but it wasn't great. And I could see like a difference in him from before the show when he met me to after he saw me. And I can see like almost like a distrust, like when your act isn't what you want it to be, and so I come back the next night, and Tim Brennan's there in the room, and I hear from the Improv that Tim will be emceeing the weekend, and I will just be featuring. Which there's part of me like, fuck man, like that's what he thought of me, and I know I know it was his decision to do that. But then on the same note, he I was also like, then I don't have to do I don't have to do the I don't have to do
Good. I did. Yeah, my kids just walked through going to bed.
Yeah. I gotta use the bathroom. But I'm also like, I get the feature, it makes it easier. And I murdered for the next like 4 or 5 shows or whatever it was. And he pulled me aside after the very first show on Friday, and he's like, "That's what I'm talking about, man. I told the booker, the GM last night. He's like, I told him that you're a feature, man. Like you can't be in that spot. Your act doesn't fit that MC spot. I knew you would kill it in this spot.
Yeah.
I'm glad we made that change." And I don't know if that's really how he pitched it the night before or not, but I could see that trust back in him. Like immediately after that show, it was like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna be fine. Like I don't have to worry about him. So it was different.
Yeah, I bet. But that's cool though that like you came back like, and I'm sure like I opened for him before I was the MC. It was me and Gwen LaRocca.
Okay.
Opening for him. He was a really cool guy. It wouldn't surprise me if he had pitched it that way, like like bring him back as a feature and bring in another, but this is what we call ambushed. There's some topics in here written by a kid, and I have no idea what they are. Topics or words. We don't know if they will be spelled correctly or what they will be. Let's see. Oh, this is actually a good one. Baseball is the first one we got tonight.
All right.
Baseball. So, Cubs fan. You're a Cubs fan, right?
If I have to pick, I'll say Cubs fan. I grew
You
up
don't
not.
have to.
I grew up not giving a shit. I grew up really going to both stadiums. My parents owned a sports card shop when I was a kid, and
Oh,
so
cool.
we got free tickets to all the games, and so we used to go to a bunch of different games. In my latter years, I've more of a Cubs fan. We're season ticket holders of the Cubs now. So
Yeah.
so yeah. What about you?
I'm a Cubs fan. I grew up in Oklahoma, but grew up watching the Cubs fan, diehard Cubs. I mean, I like you can see behind me, like
Yeah,
this
clock,
is
the hat.
all the clock and stuff. And then this is my favorite thing on the wall, right there in that. So a buddy of mine, who's an artist and a Cubs season ticket holder, took me to Game 6 when the Cubs beat the Dodgers to go to the World Series.
Wow.
And then he created that piece of art, and right there is the ticket from the game. So
How
I've got
cool,
like
man.
yeah, it was really cool. So I'm a diehard Cubs fan, but I cheer for the Sox too. Like I'm not one of those guys. Like when
Yeah,
they won in 2005, I was like, hey, that's great for the city.
yeah.
Uh,
I
I
just
wasn't cheering for him, but I wasn't pissed off either.
sure. Yeah, I was happy when they did their thing. I posted on. It's funny you asked that. I posted on Facebook the other day something like whenever I go out of town and people find out I'm from Chicago and they go Cubs or Sox, I always respond with I could care less as long as their stadium has gender neutral bathrooms, and it just stops that conversation dead in its tracks, and I don't have to make that decision anymore. So
That's awesome. That's great. So I do have to ask, because you said your parents owned a sports card shop growing up.
yeah,
So did you collect, or do you still collect
I
cards?
did. I was a huge collector. Ken Griffey Jr. had a massive collection of his. He's my
Yeah.
favorite ball player growing up. I had a ton of Jordan stuff as well. But and I started getting into football in the later years of them owning the store. They closed the store in 1996, so shortly before like the internet boom and what would have dissolved a brick and mortar store anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I was a big collector. Not anymore. My brother-in-law is a massive collector and still does like the card shows, and he deals in like
Hmm.
high-end cards and stuff. So I stay like up to date on the industry through him, but I don't
Yeah.
collect myself. I'm a gambler. I'm a recovering gambler. Um,
Okay.
and so for me, I found like collecting would still be me gambling because I didn't like
Oh yeah.
buying I didn't like buying a card to have the card. I liked opening up a pack to see if I could get it. And so for
Yeah.
me, it's
That's
still
how I was that way.
yeah. So for me, it still comes with I'd rather pay and take chances to be rewarded. And for me, gambler, that's no good.
Yeah. That's not so good.
Yeah.
Uh, so do you have still in your possession, what's your favorite card? Not the most expensive card or what's worth the most. What's your most valuable card to Vince Carone?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't have any.
You don't have
No,
any.
nope. I when I was as this story all connects. When I was 11 years old, I gambled away probably 90% of my card collection playing poker for cards with my buddies,
Okay.
and I literally did. I lost. We'd be like, hey, I have a card for $10. I'll bet that. Then you would bet a card for $10. And you
Yeah.
went, and one night I lost like three big hands in a row playing poker, and then I started being like, hey, I'll bet like this $100 card against those four. And and that guy won again. And I just kept like taking my collection.
Wow.
And it was oddly enough, it was the start of my gambling problem, not the end of it. But, so I gambled away most of my good stuff. But back then, my favorite card was, I can't even remember the brand, but it was a Ken Griffey Jr. card. Studio might have been the brand if I remember properly, but it was a Ken Griffey Jr. card, and he had his hat on backwards in it, and that was like my favorite card of all. But I lost it
Yeah.
in that whole
Oh,
debacle.
man.
Yeah.
I collected for a little bit. I was a hockey fan, so I had a lot of hockey cards. But this card shop by us growing up would always have contests. Like the first person to get 1,000 cards of a certain player would get their rookie card or something like that.
Oh, smart.
Or 100 cards or whatever it was. So my favorite card that I had for just a short amount of time, I ended up trading it away for something stupid, I'm sure. But I had a Nolan Ryan rookie card, which was just amazing. But I traded it off for something stupid, But that was always my
Yeah.
that's that card I look back on and I'm like, I wish I had kept that.
Yeah, I guess in that regard, since you say that, the card I don't have it anymore, and I didn't lose this one. I actually sold it years ago for nothing when it was worth nothing, but because I wasn't sentimental about it anymore. But when I was 9 years old, I was working at my parents' store, and they would always like take care of you, give me some packs of cards or whatever, or it'd be like, hey, you got that toy, like come, put some cards in order or something. So I was helping out, and I remember one day I worked there literally all Saturday with them, and they wanted to give me like free packs of cards at the end of the night, and I had cash on me, and I wanted to buy my packs of cards for some reason. I don't know, and so I rung myself up at the register, put the money in, picked up a pack of cards, and my dad used to always do this thing, like if he would like pick like a pack of cards, he'd take 2 packs and put them to his head. He's like, this one feels colder, and he would pick that. And he was just goofing around. But I did it, and one of them did feel colder to me. So I bought that one. I opened it, and it was a Donruss, 92 Donruss card. And it was a Frank Thomas Elite card. And so
Wow.
they only made 10 back. It's a lot now, but back then, before the internet, they only made 10,000 of them. And it was like it was a special card, and it was super awesome. And Frank Thomas at the time, him and Ken Griffey were both my favorite players. And I remember just like jumping up and down. My parents were out in front of the store smoking, and they see me jumping up and down inside. And I see my dad look through the window, and he goes, he's got an elite card. Is that Frank Thomas? And then they threw their cigarettes out, and they came running back in. And when I was 9 years old, it was worth $500 at the time. And so, I remember my dad offered to buy it off me for a couple hundred right then and there. And I said no. And then we framed it and all that. And I kept it. I probably got rid of it maybe 10 years ago, just taking up space. I didn't need it. I didn't care. I got the memory. I don't need the card. So
exactly. I mean, it sounds like, just the smile on your face when you telling that story of like opening it out, man. Like,
super cool.
You're like, super cool. So I got, let's see, we'll do one more here. Let's see here. Computers.
All right.
All right. Gotta have them. Gotta have them. Gotta have them.
Especially now, especially through quarantine. Like, who knew that our lives as comics would be on this right now?
I know. How many shows have you done? Virtual shows?
Oh, I've only done a handful of them. I'm putting on one next week myself, which probably be over by the time this airs, but it'll be on the 16th of May.
I saw that with Ken Gar and
Mary Santora. I don't know if you know her, but she's super funny.
I do. Yeah, she's out of Cleveland, right?
Yeah, she's great. Yeah. And then I got a special guest that'll be on there that I'll share with you when we're off here. But there'll be a special guest that'll be on it as well. And so just gonna have some fun and just kind of see what I can do. I wanna figure it out. But trying to figure out all the nuances. I upgraded a whole bunch of equipment on my computer in quarantine here. Everything from webcam to sound to lighting to all kinds of other stuff. So
I've been focusing so much of my time. Like I work in graphics doing design stuff. That's what I enjoy doing. So I've been keeping up on my skills, as much as I can, getting back into really, like Photoshop, I know pretty well, but so like I started focusing on Illustrator, and then now I'm focusing on Premiere Pro, trying to learn video editing. I was like, all right, I should probably use this time to learn something new.
Yeah. Well, with Premiere Pro, it's like Google's is like your best friend for that program. I'll do the same thing. I've been editing like minor stuff for a few years now, but it's like, how do I do this? Go on Google, watch like a 62-second video. You're like, oh, okay, now I know how to do it. Like, you know, how easy we've made everything now.
It's yeah, it's so easy to get stuff. And Adobe's done really good. Like on a lot of their new stuff, you can, if you hover over the tool, it'll show you a quick snippet of how that tool works and what it does. And then if you need more, you can click on that and it'll take you to like a video and show you a video of like how to use that tool.
Oh, that's smart.
I was like, I know it does that in Photoshop and Illustrator. I don't know if it does it in Premiere Pro. I should probably check that out.
Probably does. I just, I've just been so accustomed to jumping to Google right away that I don't even look, but yeah.
You got something that works, it works, right? So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for joining me, man. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you and the family are healthy and well, and it's good to see you, even if it is only in 2 dimensions.
Yeah, likewise, man.
So, thanks for joining us. Vince Carone. Do you want to give out website, Twitter handles, any of that stuff that you want out there?
Yep, all social media. You could find me at Vince Carone, and website is vincecarone.com. My new album, Vincectomy, is out on all your streaming platforms. I found out that I hit 1.5 million streams on Pandora lifetime so far, which I've been pushing all these other streaming platforms, and it turns out my audience likes me on Pandora. So go check that out, build that one up. But I've got my albums out there. So
nice. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon, man.
Thanks for having me.